Friends, my channel name is Indian Epic History. Search this channel name on YouTube and select playlist option for all videos like Rama and Mahabharat Puran. Otherwise, click the channel name below the video, then go to the playlist. And this is Bori Critical Mahabharat book, Arjuna Vanvasa Parva, chapter 200. Janmejaya said, O one blessed with the power of austerities, all those great soul Pandavas are my ancestors. After obtaining the kingdom of Indraprastha, what did those great souled ones do? Those five rulers of men had a common wife in Krishna, means Draupadi. How did their lawful wife Draupadi follow their wishes? How did they, the immensely fortunate ones, prevent decision among themselves? Press the red subscribe option and press the bell icon for my latest video updates. The immensely fortunate ones prevent decisions among themselves. How did they behave with one another after they had united with Krishna, means Draupadi? O one blessed with the power of austerities, I wish to hear all this in detail. Bhisampayana said, with Dhritarashtra's permission, the Pandavas, tigers among men and scorcher of enemies, obtained the kingdom and sported in pleasure with Krishna. Having obtained the kingdom, the immensely energetic and truthful Yudhishthira ruled over the earth in accordance with Dharma. Together with his brothers, having defeated their enemies, the immensely wise sons of Pandu, always devoted to truth and dharma, lived there in supreme happiness. Seated on extremely expensive royal thrones, those bulls among men performed all the duties towards the citizens. When those great soul ones were thus seated together, Devrishi Narada, who was travelling as he willed, happened to come there. Yudhishthira offered him his own excellent seat. As is prescribed, the wise Yudhishthira himself gave him offerings, and once the Devrishi was seated, reported the state of the kingdom. The Rishi happily accepted the homage and blessings him, asked him to be seated. Thus instructed, King Yudhishthira sat down. He sent word to Krishna that the illustrious one had arrived. Hearing this, Draupadi carefully purified herself and went to the place where Narada and the Pandavas were assembled. That follower of Dharma, Drupada's daughter, paid homage at the Devarshi's feet and stood before him with joined palms, appropriately covered. The illustrious Narada, supreme among rishis, always truthful and with dharma in his heart, pronounced his blessings on the unblemished princess and then asked her to leave. When Krishna had left, the illustrious Rishi told the Pandavas, with Yudhishthira at their head, the immensely famous daughter of Panchala is a single wife to all of you. In accordance with Dharma, you must lay down a rule among yourselves, lest there be decision. In ancient times, there were two Asuras brothers named Sunda and Upasunda who were famous in the three worlds. They were always together and were incapable of being killed by anyone else except each other. They ruled over the same kingdom, they lived in the same house, they slept on the same bed, they sat in a same seat, they ate of the same plate, but they killed each other over Tiloktama. O Yudhishthira, therefore seek to protect the friendship you have for each other and act so that there is no division amongst you. Yudhishthira replied, O great sage, whose sons were the Asuras Sunda and Upasunda, how did the division originate? Why did they kill each other? They killed each other over desire for Tiloktama. Whose Tiloktama? Daughter of the gods was she, O one blessed with the powers of austerity, so Brahmana? We are greatly curious and wish to hear everything in detail. Please tell me. Narada said, O Yudhishthira, son of Pritha, then together with your brothers listen to this ancient account exactly as it happened. In ancient times, in the great Asura, Hiranyakashipu's lineage, there was a powerful and energetic lord of the Daityas named Nikumba. He had two immensely valorous sons who were terrible in their prowess. They never ate unless they were together and never went anywhere without each other. They always did what was pleasurable to the other and always spoke pleasantly to the others. They were similar in behavior and conduct, like one divided into two, similar in action and inclination. They grew up as immensely valorous and adopted the identical resolution of conquering the three worlds. After consecration, they went to the Vindhya mountains and practiced terrible austerities there. They were exhausted with hunger and thirst. Their hair was matted and they were dressed in the bark of trees, but they continued to perform austerities until they acquired powers. They covered all their limbs with filth and lived on air. They offered their own flesh into the fire. They stood on the tips of their toes, raising their arms, and without blinking, they observed their vows for a long period. Heated by the power of the length of their austerities, and extraordinary incidents occurred. The Vindhya began to belch out smoke. On seeing the terrible power of their austerities, the gods were frightened. The gods created various obstacles to prevent them from attaining their vows. They repeatedly tempted them with jewels and beautiful women, but the two of them stood firm against these temptations. Then the gods used the power of Maya on the two great souls, wherein their sisters, mothers, wives, and relatives, trembling and frightened, were oppressed by a Rakshasa who chased them with a spear. Their hair and ornaments were disheveled and their garments fell loose. The woman seemed to be running towards them, exclaiming, Save us! But even these could not break the vows of the ones who were great in their vows. When they were not shocked or grieved at this, the woman and the demon all vanished. Then Brahma himself appeared before the great Asuras. He who is the grandfather of all the worlds asked them to seek a boon. On seeing the god and grandfather Sunda and Upasunda, those two brothers who were firm in their valor stood before him with their hands joined together. They then spoke to the illustrious god, O grandfather, if you are pleased with our austerities, then may we possess the knowledge of delusion and the knowledge of all weapons. May we be strong and may we have the power to change our form at will. If the illustrious Lord is pleased with us, may we be immortal. Brahma replied, Except for being immortal, everything else will be the way you wish. Choose a means of death that will make you the equal of the immortals, since you have performed these austerities with an objective in mind. The boon of immortality cannot be granted to you. You have undertaken these austerities with a view to conquering the three worlds, O Lord of the Daityas. For this reason, I cannot grant you the boon that you desire. Sunda and Upasunda said, O grandfather, then Let us not face any fear from any being, anything mobile or immobile, any object in the three worlds other than each other. The grandfather replied, I can grant you this boon the way you have wished it. Your death will occur the way you have indicated. Having then granted them this boon, Brahma then asked them to refrain from austerities and return to his world. Having obtained these boons, the two brothers, the lord of the Daityas, who could no longer be slain by anyone in the world, then returned to their home on seeing that the great Asuras had obtained the boons and were successful in getting what they desired. All their well wishers were extremely happy. The two great Asuras cut off their matted locks, they wore crowns and dressed themselves in expensive ornaments and unblemished garments. Though it was not the right season, they observed the Komodi festival. The lords of the Daityas and their well-wishers happily enjoyed themselves in the festivities. In house after house were heard the words eat, feed, pleasure, sing, drink, and give. There were great bouts of drinking. A roar arose from the clapping of hands. The entire city of the Daityas went wild with joy, as the Daityas, who could assume any form at will, sported themselves in varied amusements. Many years passed, but it seemed like a single day. Narada said, when the festivities ended, the two great ones wished to conquer the three worlds. Having obtained the permission of their well-wishers and elders among the Daityas, arranging their army and having sought counsel and performed the required rites, they set out in the night when the consultation Mega was in the ascendant. A large army of Daityas went with them, carrying clubs, pikes, spears, all following the same dharma. Charanas sung their praises in auspicious songs that wished them victory. They set out with happiness in their hearts. The two Daityas could assume any form at will, and they are intoxicated at the prospect of war. They rose into the two and went to the ha- habitation of the gods, knowing that they were coming and aware of the boon that they had obtained from the illustrious one. The gods fled heaven and went to Brahma's world. With their terrible valor, they conquered Indra's world and defeated masses of yakshas and rakshasas, and being that frequent the sky, the two great asuras then vanquished the Nagas who dwell in the interior regions of the earth, all those who live in the oceans, and all the Mlecha races. The two who were terrible in their rule wished to subjugate the entire earth. They summoned their soldiers and uttered these harsh words. With their great sacrifices and offerings, the Rajarishis and Brahmanas increased the energy, strength, and prosperity of the gods. Because of this act, they caused injury to the Asuras. Together we must attack and completely destroy them. Having thus ordered them on the eastern shores of the great ocean, they set out in all directions with this cruel resolution in mind. The two powerful ones killed those who sacrificed and Brahmanas who officiated at sacrifices. Wherever they were seen in hermitage of rishis who had controlled their souls, their soldiers grasped the sacrificial fires and flung them irreverently away. Because of the boon granted to them, the curses of the great soul and angry ascetics had no effect. When the Brahmanas saw that their curses had no effect, like when arrows strike a stone, they gave up their vows and fled in all directions like snakes fleeing at the approach of Vinata's son. Those on earth who were successful in austerities and were self controlled and calm ran away. All the hermitages were destroyed, the pots and ladders were broken and scattered. The entire universe was empty, as if it was the time of final destruction. When the Rajrishis and Rishis disappeared into hiding, the great Asuras united in their decision to kill. They changed their forms and assumed ones of mad, rooting elephants with their temples oozing, and sent those who were in inaccessible region to Yama's abode. Sometimes they become lions and yet again tigers. They also become invincible. With these forms, they slaughtered the rishis wherever they found them. Sacrifices and studying ceased, and the brahmanas were exterminated. The earth, bereft of festivals and sacrifices, cried out in fear. All buying and selling ended, the worship of the gods was stopped, sacred rites and marriages were not observed, agriculture and the tending of cattle ended, cities and hermitage were destroyed, strewn with bones and skeletons, the earth was terrible to behold. Ceremonies for the ancestors were no longer observed. The secret chants ceased, the universe was terrible and loathsome to behold. On witnessing this act of Sunda and Upasunda, the moon, the sun, the planets, and the stars, the consultations and dwellers of heaven were depressed, thus subjugating all the directions with their terrible acts. The two Daityas lived in Kurukshetra after vanquishing every enemy. Narada said, on witnessing this great destruction, all the Devrishis, the Siddhas, and the Supreme Rishis were extremely distressed. They were ones who had conquered anger, mastered their souls and senses, stirred by compassion for the universe. They went to the grandfather's abode. There they saw the grandfather seated with the gods, surrounded by Siddhas and Brahmarishis. The god Mahadeva was there, with Agni and Vayu, the moon and the sun were there, and Dharma and uh, Parameshti and Buddha. The Vaikhanasas were there, and the Balakhilyas, those who had restored to the forest, the Marichipas, the unborn ones, those who were not diluted, and other ascetics who were born from energy. All these rishis were paying homage to the grandfather. All the Maharshis went there and recounted the deeds of Sunda and Upasunda, what they had done, how they had done it, and in what order. Having recounted everything to the grandfather, all the masses of the gods and the supreme rishis praised him to act. On hearing all their words, the grandfather thought for an instant, trying to decide what should be done, determining how they might be killed. He summoned Vishwakarma. When he saw Vishwakarma, the grandfather ordered, O great ascetic, create a lady who will be desired. Paying homage to the grandfather and listening attentively to his words, he thought about it and carefully created a divine themselves. First, he carefully collected whatever was beautiful in the three worlds, mobile or immobile. He placed millions of gems on her body. The divine beauty that he created was the essence of gems. He was created by Vishwakarma with a great deal of diligence and was unmatched in beauty among all the women in the three worlds. There wasn't the tiniest part of her body that wasn't perfect in the wealth of its beauty and that failed to attract the gaze of the beholder. She was like she herself beautiful and desirable. She captivated the eyes and the hearts of all beings because she had been created bit by bit from the essence of all gems. The grandfather gave her the name of Tiloktama. The grandfather said, O Tiloktama, go to the Asuras Sunda and Upasunda, O fortunate one, seduce them with your desirable beauty, act in a way so that you create decision among the two of them. When they see how perfect your beauty is, she agreed to do this. Paying homage to the grandfather, she circumambulated the gods assembled there. The illustrious one faced the east, uh, Maheshwara faced the south, the other gods faced the north, while all the rishis faced various directions. But while she was thus circumambulating the gods, only Indra and the illustrious god Sthanu managed to maintain their composure, but so great was his desire to see her as she possessed by his side. The another face, with eyes having curved lashes, emerged from the southern side. When she went behind him, another face emerged from the western side, and when she went north, another face emerged on the northern side. For the great Indra too, 1,000 large and red tinted eyes appeared everywhere, on his back and on his sides. Thus, in ancient times, Mahadeva Thanu comes to possess four faces, and the slayer of Bala come to possess 1,000 eyes. As Tiloktama walked around, all the masses of gods and the rishis turned their faces in the direction that she followed. But for the god who was the grandfather, the eyes of all the great souled ones were on her body. When the one with richness of beauty left for her appointed task, all the gods and the supreme rishis thought that the act had already been accomplished. After Tiloktama had departed, the one with the welfare of the worlds in his mind asked all the gods and the rishis to leave. Narada said, after conquering the earth, the two Daityas had no other enemies or concern, having subjugated the three worlds, their desire had been attained. They were delighted at having robbed the gods, the Gandharvas, Yakshas, Nagas, kings, and Rakshasas of all their gems, and when they saw that they had not a single rival left, they were supremely content. Like the immortals, they have up all endeavors and spend their time in pleasures with women, garlands, fragrance, food, and delicious in copious quantities, drink, and various other objects that give rise to enjoyment. Like the immortals, they sported in their inner quarters, gardens, mountains, and groups, and in whatever region that struck their fancy. One day, they went to sport in a rocky plain on the Binda mountains that was dense with shala trees graced with blossoming flowers. After every divine objects of desire had been brought, the two contentedly sat on supreme seats with beautiful women around them. Wishing to please the two, the women danced to the sound of music and delighted them with songs sung in their praise. It was then that Tiloktama appeared, plucking flowers in the forest. She was dressed in a single red garment, and attired that was very seductive, gathering Karnikara flowers along the banks of the river. She slowly approached the place where the two great Asuras were. They had drunk the best of wine, and their eyes were red. On seeing the one with the beautiful hips, they were struck by desire. They instantly left their seats and went to where she was. Filled with desire, they both asked for her favor. Sunda grasped the right hand and the one with the beautiful brows. Upasunda grasped Tiloktama's left hand. They were intoxicated with the boon they had received, with their physical strength, with the riches and gems they possessed, and with the wine they had drunk. Intoxicated with this madness and with the madness of desire, they contracted their brows and spoke to each other. She is my wife and your superior, and soon said Sunda, she is my wife and your sister in law, replied Upasunda. In their anger, they um, shouted at each other, she is mine, not yours. Overcome by desire for her, they grasped their terrible clubs, uttered the words, I was the first. They attacked each other. Struck by those terrible clubs, both of them fell down on the ground with blood streaming from their bodies. They looked like two suns dislodged from the sky. Then the woman and the masses of Daityas fled, miserable and shuddering with fright. All of them took refuge in the nether regions. Then the pure souled grandfather arrived with the gods and the Maharshis and praised Tiloktama. Brahma was pleased to grant her a boon. Delighted with her, the grandfather said, O fortunate one, you will roam in the worlds of the Adityas. Your energy will be so great that no one will be able to look at you for a long time. Having granted this boon to her, the grandfather of all the worlds instated Indra in the three worlds. The illustrious one then departed for Brahma's world. Those two were always together, they were always united with the same objective, but in their anger they killed each other over Tiloktama, over woman. O supreme among the birth lineage, Yudhishthira, out of my affection for you, I am telling you so that there is no decision among you because of Draupadi. O fortunate ones, if you wish to please me, act accordingly. Vaishnampayana said, O king, having been thus addressed by the great soul Maharshi Narada, they consulted with each other and arrived at a rule in the infinitely energetic Devrishi Narada's presence. If any one of them set eyes on Draupadi when she was lying with any one of the others, he would retire to the forest and live the life of a brahmachari for 12 years. After the Pandavas, who always followed Dharma, had established this rule, the great sage Narada was happy and went where he wished to go. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, in earlier times, thus requested by Narada, they established a rule and no decision arose between them. Vaishnampayana said, after having established an agreement in this way, the Pandavas lived there with the strength of their weapons they brought under their sovereignly many kings. Krishna followed the wishes of all the five sons of Pritha, who were lions among men and immeasurable in their energy. She was extremely happy with the five valorous ones as her husbands, like Saraswati with her elephants. And they were also delighted with her, since the great soul Pandavas, avided by dharma of all Kurus, increased in prosperity, were bereft of sin, and were happy. O Lord of the earth, O supreme among kings, after a long time had passed, thieves robbed a Brahmana's cattle. When his wealth was thus stolen, the Brahmana lost his senses in anger. He went to Khandaprastha and angrily reproved the Pandavas. O Pandavas, men cruel and mindless thieves, are forcibly robbing me of my wealth of cattle in your kingdom. Pursue them. The sacrificial offerings of a peaceful Brahmana are being carried away by cows. The inferior jackals has invaded the disturbed cave of a tiger. A Brahmana's riches are being taken away by thieves, Dharma and Artha will be destroyed. I am crying for help. Take up your arms, as the miserable Brahmana cried out to the Pandavas. Kunti's son Dhananjaya heard these words. On hearing the words, the mighty armed one told the Brahmana not to fear. But Dharmaraja Yudhishthira was then lying with Krishna in the room where the great soul Pandavas kept their weapons. The Pandava was unable to enter the room, but he was also unable to go away, as the wailing Brahmana repeatedly urged him with his words. Kunti's son reflected in sorrow. These ascetic Brahmanas' riches are being robbed. It is certainly my duty to dry his tears. If I do not protect someone who is weeping at our door, the great adharma of negligence will taint the king. If I fail to protect, the adharma of our failing to protect will certainly be established in all the worlds. But it is also certain that if I enter the room without the permission of King Ajatsatru Yudhishthira, I will do him a great injury and I must be vanished to the forest. There will either be great adharma or death in the forest, but dharma must be upheld even if there is destruction of my body, O Lord of the earth. Having thus resolved, Kunti's son Dhananjaya entered the room and took the king's permission. Grasping his bow, he happily told the Brahmana, O Brahmana, let us go quickly, so that those mean thieves do not go too far away, and I can return your riches to you. From the hands of the robbers, the mighty armed one, with bow and armor and riding a chariot with flags, preached the thieves with arrows and recovered the riches, thus helping the Brahmana and returning his riches of cattle to him. The Pandava obtained fame. The valorous Sabyasachi, scorer of enemies, returned to the city. He paid his homage to all his superiors and was in turn praised by them. He then told Dharmaraja, O Lord, grant me permission to observe my vow. On seeing you, I have violated the rule, and I must go and dwell in the forest because that is the rule we made. Oh, suddenly hearing these unpleasant words, Dharmaraja was afflicted by grief and in a sorrowful voice asked why. Yudhishthira told his brothers, Gudakesha means Arjuna, a brother who never suffered from decay, O unblemished one. If I am one with authority, listen to my words, O brave one. I know all the reasons why you entered the room and caused me displeasure, and I have no felt any injury. There is no sin if a younger brother enters where the elder brother is lying with his wife. However, if an elder brother enters a room where the younger brother is lying with his wife, that is improper. O mighty armed one, refrain, listen to my words, and do as I say. Your dharma has not suffered, and no injury has been done to me. Arjuna replied, I have also heard from you that dharma must not be observed through pretenses. I will not waver from the truth. The truth is my weapon. With the king's permission, he was consecrated in the rites of brahmacharya and went away to live in the forest for 12 years. Bisampana said, when the mighty armed one who extended the fame of the Kuru lineage departed, great soul Brahmanas who knew the Vedas were knowledgeable in the Vedangas, those who were devoted to contemplation of the Supreme Being, those who were immersed in the Supreme Lord, and Baird who knew the ancient tales followed him, O king. There were also recounters, ascetics, those who dwelled in the forest, and Brahmanas who read divine tales in melodious voices. Surrounded by these and many others were skilled in recounting stories. Pandu's son travelled like Vashava, surrounded by the Maruts, or descendant of the Bharati lineage. The bull among Bharatas saw beautiful and colorful woods, lakes, rivers, oceans, countries, and sacred places of pilgrimage. Reaching the source of the Ganga, the Lord began to live there. O Janmejaya, now listen as I tell you about the wonderful act that the pure souled charioteer, who was foremost among the Pandus, performed, or descendant of the Bharata lineage. When Kunti's son lived there with the Brahmanas performed many Agnihotras, O king. The fires were kindled and blazed as offerings were made into them. Offerings of flowers were made on both sides of the river by the learned and great souled ones who were always unwavering in their vows, and they successfully consecrated there. As a result of this, the source of the Ganga became extremely beautiful. One day, when this was going on, the son of Kunti and Pandu entered the Ganga to have a bath. O king, he performed his ablutions and offered water to his grandfathers. He was about to climb out of the water, wishing to perform rites to the fire. O great king, O mighty armed one, was grasped and pulled into the water by Ullupi, daughter of king of the Nagas, who could travel where she willed. There in the revered palace of the Naga named Kauravya, the Pandavas saw a fire that had been built up well. Kunti's son Dhananjaya performed his rites in that fire, witnessing the unhesitating offerings of oblations. Hutasana was satisfied. After having performed his rites before the fire, Kunti's son smilingly uttered these words to the daughter of the Naga king: O beautiful one, O timid one, how did you perform such a courageous act? What beautiful land is this? Whom do you belong to, and whose daughter are you? Ulupi replied, O Partha, the serpent Korobya is descended from the lineage of Airavata. I am his daughter and a serpent named Ulupi. O Konteya, I saw you descended into the water to have a bath and was robbed of my senses by the god of love. O descendant of the Kuru lineage, means Kamdeva. God of love means Kamdeva. O descendant of the Kuru lineage, the god of love is churning me. I am yet a maiden. Please me today by giving yourself to me. Arjuna said, O fortunate one, I have been commanded by Dharmaraja to observe brahmacharya for 12 years and do not have control over myself. O dweller in the water, I do wish to do that which brings you pleasure, but never before this have I spoken that which is untrue. O serpent maiden, how can I bring pleasure to you and yet not do that which is untrue? How can I not violate dharma? Ulupi replied, O Pandava, I know why you are roaming the earth. I know that you are observing brahmacharya on the instruction of your superior. This was the rule you made among yourselves for Drupada's daughter, that anyone deluded enough to enter would retire to the forest and observe brahmacharya for a period for 12 years. The exile is therefore for the sake of Draupadi. You are observing the dharma, but in this case, dharma does not suffer. O large eyed one, it is your duty to save those who are distressed. By saving me, dharma is not violated. O Arjuna, even if there is a slight transgression of dharma, by granting me life, you will achieve greater dharma. O Partha, O Lord, I desire you, desire me in return. That is the view of those who are rigid in their vows. Know that if you do not do this, I will certainly die. O mighty armed one, grant me life and achieve supreme dharma. O supreme among men, I am now seeking refuge with you. O Konteya, you have always protected those who are weak and without protectors. I am miserable and weeping and am seeking refuge with you. I am overcome with desire, and I am seeking you. Do that which is pleasurable to me. Satisfy my desire by giving yourself to me. Hearing these words, Kontia then did what she wanted, accepting Dharma to be the reason. The powerful one spent the night in the palace of the serpent. When the sun rose, he too arose from Kaurabya's abode. Next chapter, Vishnupada said, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the sons of the wielder of the Vajra told the Brahmanas everything and left for the slopes of the Himalayas. He first went to Agastya's banyan tree and then to Vashishta's mountain. Kontya performed his ablutions on Bhrigu's peak. He donated 1,000 cows at sacred places of pilgrimage. That supreme among Kurus gave houses to Brahmanas, the supreme among men, then bathed at the place of pilgrimage known as Hiranyavindu and saw the best of mountains and sacred places. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, that best of men then descended, accompanied by Brahmanas, that bull among Bharata lineage, then left for the eastern direction. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, one after another, the best of Kurus saw many places of pilgrimage and the beautiful river Utpalini in the Nemisha forest and the famous rivers Nanda, Upananda and Kaushiki. The great rivers Gaya and Ganga, having seen all these places of pilgrimage and having purified himself, he donated riches to the Brahmanas. He went to every sacred place of pilgrimage in Anga, Vanga, and Kalinga. Having seen them in the proper fashion, he gave always riches. He gave away always riches. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, when he approached the gates of the kingdom of Kalinga, the Brahmanas who had followed the Pandava took their leave and departed. But with their permission, Kunti's son, the valorous Dhananjaya, went on as far as the ocean with only a few conceptions with him. Passing beyond Kalinga, the Lord saw many beautiful countries and followers of Dharma. He went and saw Mahinda mountain adorned with ascetics traveling slowly along the shores of the ocean. He arrived in Manalura, having seen all the sacred places of pilgrimage there. The mighty armed one went to visit the king who was the lord of Manalura, King Chitrabhahana, who was devoted to Dharma. He had a beautiful daughter named Chitrangada. When he saw Chitrabhahana's daughter of the beautiful hips roaming around in the city at will, he was struck by desire. He went to the king and told him what he wished. The king then spoke to him in a placatory voice. A king named Prabhamkara was once born in our lineage. He had no sons and performed supreme austerities for the sake of offsprings. On witnessing his terrible austerities and homage, the god Mahadeva Umapati Shankara was satisfied. The great lord granted him the boon that only a single offspring would be born in every generation of this lineage. Since then, in succession, only a single offspring has been born in our lineage. All my ancestors before me had sons, but a daughter was born to me, and it is certain that she will have to carry forward my lineage. O supreme among men, I have always thought of her as my son, O bull among the Bharata lineage, in accordance with what is prescribed. I have therefore made her my putrika. O son, the perpetuator of this lineage will be the bride price. O Pandava, you can take her as long as you agree to this condition. Agreeing to this condition, he accepted the daughter, and Kontia lived in that city for 3 winters. Next chapter, Vishnupada said, O bull among the Bharata lineage, then went to the sacred places of pilgrimage to the south near the ocean. These sacred places were adorned with ascetics. However, this ascetics stayed away from 5 places of pilgrimage that had been frequented by ascetics in earlier times: Agastyatirtha, Sobhadra, and immensely purifying Polama, the calm Karandhama that provided the fruits of a horse sacrifice, and the great Tirtha Bharadwaja, which wishes away all sins. On seeing these places of pilgrimage abandoned and shunned by intelligent sages who were devoted to Dharma, the Pandava, who was Kuru's descendant, joined his hands in salutation and asked the ascetics, "Why have those who are learned in the Brahman abandoned these tirthas?" The ascetics replied, "O descendant of the Kuru lineage, 5 crocodiles live in them and drag away those who are blessed with the powers of austerities. That is the reason these tirthas are abandoned." On hearing this, the mighty armed and glorious one, supreme among men, went to see these tirthas. South the ascetics tried to restrain him. He went to Saubhadra, named after Maharshi, and supreme among Tirthas, the brave one, scourger of enemies, swiftly immersed himself to have a bath. At that, the giant crocodile that lived in a water came and grasped Kunti's son Dhananjaya, tiger among men. But the mighty armed Kaunteya, supreme among those who are strong, seized the aquatic creature, which began to struggle and got out of the water. O king, as soon as the famous Arjuna dragged the crocodile out, it returned into a beautiful woman adorned in every ornament, radiant, charming, divine of form, and alluring. On witnessing this great and extraordinary event, Kunti's son Dhananjaya was extremely pleased and asked the lady, "O fortunate one, who are you and how did you come to live in the water? Why have you been committing such great sins earlier?" The lady replied, "O mighty armed one, I am a apsara who used to roam in the forest of the gods. I am extremely powerful varga, means varga apsara, always the favorite of the Lord of riches. I had 4 beautiful friends of all capable of going anywhere at will. With them I was once going to the abode of the preceptor of the worlds. On our way, all of us saw a Brahmana who was rigid in his vows. He was extremely handsome and was studying alone in his solitude. O king, that entire forest was radiant with the energy of his austerities like the sun. He seemed to have illuminated that entire region. On witnessing the extraordinary sight of his terrible austerities, we descended in that region so as to bring impediments to his pursuit of austerity." So, descendant of the Bharata lineage, I, Saurabehi, Samichi, Budbuda, and Lata went to the Brahmana at the same time. We sang a sang and laughed and sought to tame the Brahmana, O brave one, but he did not pay any attention to us. Even for an instant, the immensely energetic and pure one did not waver and was fixed in his austerities. O bully among Kshatriyas, but the Brahmana was urged and cursed us that we would become crocodile and live in water for 100 years. Varga said, "O supreme among those of the Bharata lineage, we were all extremely distressed and sought the refuge of the Bharata Brahmana, who was blessed with the powers of austerities and never decayed. We said, O Brahmana, the god of love made us arrogant." God of love means Kamdeva. "Because of your youth and beauty, we did what should not be done. Please forgive us that we had come to tempt a self controlled one, blessed with the powers of austerities, who is rigid in his vows, insufficient that for us. Those who think about Dharma are of the view that women should not be slain. You are learned in Dharma, and because of that Dharma, do not kill us. O you who are learned in Dharma, it is said that a Brahmana is a friend to all beings. Let this saying of the learned come true and bring welfare. Those who are good protect those who seek their refuge. We have sought refuge with you. You should therefore forgive us. Veshampana said, O brave one, at these words of Brahmana, the performer of good deeds, and with dharma in his soul, and the resplendent as the sun and the moon was pacified, the Brahmana said the words hundreds, thousands, and forever are always used to indicate eternity, but the word hundred used by me should be understood as a limited period and not as eternity. Becoming crocodiles, you will seize and drag men down into the water, but a supreme man will drag you out of the water and onto land, and you will then regain your earlier forms. Never before have I uttered a falsehood, not even in jest. From now on, all these tirthas will be famous everywhere as the tirthas of women. Those who are learned will know them to be sacred and the cleansers of all sins. Varga said, we then paid our homage to the Brahmana and circumambulated him. We left that region in misery, thinking when and how soon we will meet the man who will return our earlier forms. O descendant of the birth lineage, while we were thus thinking, the immensely fortunate Devrishi Narada appeared instantly before us. O Partha, on seeing the Devrishi, whose radiance is infinite, all of us were filled with joy. Paying our homage to him, we stood there with misery on our faces. He asked us the reason for our sorrow, and we told him everything. Having heard exactly what had happened, he spoke to us. There are 5 tirthas in the southern marshes of the ocean. They are sacred and beautiful. Go there immediately and live there. Pandava Dhananjaya, tiger among men, pure of soul, will certainly arrive there soon and free you from your misery, O brave one. On hearing these words, all of us come here, O unblemished one. It is true that you have set me free today, but my 4 friends are still there in the other waters. O brave one, perform a good deed and set them all free. Vishampayana said, O Lord of the earth. Then the brave one, the best of the Pandavas, happily freed them all from that curse. O king, on ascending from the waters, the apsaras regained their own forms and looked as they had earlier, purified those tirthas, and permitting them to leave, the Lord went to the city of Malarura to see Chitrangada again. Through her, he had again birthed a son named Babrubahana. O king, having seen him, the Pandava left for Gokarna. Next, Besampana said, then, one after another, the immensely powerful one visited all other tirthas, and that were to the west, and all those that were on the shores of the western ocean. Having visited them, he reaches Prabhashu. When Madhusudana heard that the invincible Bivassu had reached the region of Prabhasu after visiting all the tirthas, Madhava went to meet him. Unknown to Kaunteya, Krishna and Pandava saw each other in Prabhasa. They embraced each other and asked about each other's welfare. He beloved friends then the beloved friends who were like the rishis Nara and Narayana of yore sat down in the forest. Then Vasudeva asked Arjuna about what he had been up to and about why the Pandava was visiting all the tirthas. Thereupon Arjuna recounted to him exactly what had happened. On hearing this, the Lord Vashnaya approached. As they desired, Krishna and Pandava sported themselves in Prabhasha. They then went to the mountain Revataka to live there for some time. On Krishna's instruction, men had already decorated the mountain and stored it with a lot of food. Accepting everything that was offered, Pandava Arjuna, together with Vasudeva, watched the actors and dancers, having given them permission to live in accordance with the proper form. The immensely radiant Pandava went to sleep on a well made and divine bed. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, he told Satvata about the Tirthas, mountains, rivers, and forests he had seen. O Janmejaya, as he was thus speaking, lying on a bed that was like heaven, sleep crept up on Kaunteya. He was awakened in the morning with the sweet sounds of singing and the sounds of the veena, chants, and blessings. After he had performed the necessary acts, Vashnaya greeted him happily. Riding on a golden chariot, they set off for Dwarka. O Janmejaya, in order to pay homage to Kunti's son, even the hearts of Dwarka had been decorated. The citizens of Dwarka were eager to see Kaunteya and came out in hundreds and thousands onto the road followed by kings. There was a great common assemblage of Bhojas, Vrishnas, and Andhakas, and hundreds and thousands of their women looked on. Having been respectfully worshipped by all the Bhojas, Vrishnis, and Andhakas, he returned homage to those who deserved it and was welcomed by everyone. All the young men paid their respects to the brave one in the proper form. Those who were of his own age assembled him again and again. With Krishna, he spent many nights in Krishna's beautiful home, full of jewels and every objects of pleasure. Next, Subhadra Harana Parva.